Steve, how did you actually, when was the first time at Burning Man, and how did you come up with the idea to do the movie?
I thought you were going to introduce me as one of the drummers.
Oh, first of all, he's a perfect drummer, of course. Yeah.
Well, actually, this leads into the whole idea, but I noticed that in the drumming section, we had the digital drumming section, and sometimes you look over there and it's like, don't look at me, I'm just checking my email. And sometimes you see this little spark of inspiration, like, hey, that's me, I'm doing this. And the premise of the movie actually was the fact that we all have some spark of creativity in us, and we don't always let it out. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of passion and a lot of dedication to actually take that idea that's in your imagination and make it real in this world. And what we bring to this world really is a function of our ability to do that, our persistence and perseverance and hard work to actually make that happen. So here at MLOVE, I see this great organization that you've built, this great community you've built, which is based on a set of values and ideals. And everybody here is passionate, creative, entrepreneurial spirit, wants to make a difference in the world. And I was really interested in the idea of, like, what are the underlying values that enable that kind of community to thrive? And when I went to Burning Man the first time, I was in a startup that raised a lot of money and then became a long up. Is that the opposite of a startup? It took a long time, and it started off with a big dream of changing the world and ended up being about government and sales and money, and kind of got very one-dimensional, and creativity kind of became a distraction. And I went to Burning Man and I saw this community that was really an experimental community based on a different set of values that were very different than the values of the world that I was in. And it was an experiment in what would happen if we took away the values of money, and there was no money, and we didn't value people based on money or value anything based on money. And what if we had a world where you could really express yourself without any judgment, without trying to prove yourself, without having anything to prove, and where you could collaborate with other people, and it wasn't about creating some end result and getting paid to do it, but it was really just about the process of creative collaboration. And I saw Burning Man as this experiment in this community, and I found it just incredibly fascinating project. So that's what eventually led to making a movie about it, because I wanted to learn about it myself, and I also wanted to give something back to this community that I learned a lot from.
When was actually the first time you were there?
2006.
2006. And so the movie is spectacular in some of the also technical aspects. I mean, the story are amazing of the artists involved, but also there's like some, drones involved, and there's a technical crowd. So how long did it actually take to, when was it filmed, and how long did it take to?
So I was just mentioning to Ralph that we met at TED Global in 2011, which is around this time of year. And I had on my name tag, it said, talk to me about, and you had to fill in the blank. And I had actually wanted to take Burning Man off there because I was tired of talking about Burning Man. I didn't want to have it on there, but I couldn't get online when I was traveling to change my name tag, so I had Burning Man on my name tag. But somebody came up to me and said, I want to do TEDx at Burning Man. I want to bring, I want to bring this TED idea to Burning Man, but they won't let me do it. They're concerned it's going to be a bunch of freaks. And so I went and I said, no, I met with some of the people at TED, and I said, it's about art. This is about art and about people following their passion and doing something creative and amazing. And all the talks would be about artists and their passion and inspiration. And so they said, the head of the TEDx program said, well, we'll allow it if you become the co-organizer. And as a co-organizer, then I had to go meet with the board of Burning Man. And that was kind of controversial to have TED there, because one of the core principles of Burning Man is radical inclusion, and we're not going to be the judge, and you can truly be yourself. And TED was pretty exclusive, and so they felt like it was really the opposite, in a sense, and they didn't want to have TED there. Yeah. But we talked through all of this, and I realized that it was a really important time in the life of this community of Burning Man, because it was really growing up. It was going from this little community in the desert to this global phenomenon, this cultural idea, this set of values and principles that went way beyond this little enclave in the desert. So it was a very interesting time. And when we brought the crew there to just film for the TEDx, I said, we're shooting all week long, we're going to make a movie. And of course, I've always wanted to be in film, be involved in film. I've always seen it as one of the highest art forms. And when you go to the playa and you say, I've always wanted to do X, fill in the blank, people show up out of the woodwork, out of the dust, and say, that's a great idea, you should do it, how can I help you? So that's kind of how this film started. And but the story that I want you to think about when you watch the film, because I'm not going to give away any of the secrets of the film, but really think about the values, the underlying values of a creative community. What does that really look like, and how is that different from the world? And what are the values in your community, in your organization, in your startup? The biggest lesson for me in making this film is realizing how critically important, how fundamentally important that is when you're starting your new startup or your new organization or your new community. It's like the underlying values, and I'm not talking about like what your big company puts on the back of your name badge to get in, because that's always going to say teamwork and integrity and whatever. I mean the things you really value, how you value yourself, how you value other people, because what you value determines what influences you. And if you value things like most of the world out there, which is money and status and power, that means you're always in a room and some people have more and some people have less, and influence flows down. And I don't think that's the culture of innovation and creativity, because innovation and creativity, it comes from diversity of perspective. It comes from diving in and fearlessly confronting real problems and needs, and not being afraid. And this doesn't come from kind of the monoculture that results when we kind of try to put a price tag on everything. So you see amazing things happening at Burning Man, and you see people doing amazing art, and they're not only are they not doing it for money, it's costing them their life savings to do it. And I think actually making the movie was one of those kind of art projects too. And to go even further than being a crazy person that said I'm going to leave my tech world and go into film. Now I'm doing a media company, and I'm producing several films. And I see a lot of passionate people who want to change the world, and I see incredible talent in that field. And I also see a broken system that really doesn't reward that, and it doesn't really fund that. It funds the blockbuster franchise, hit of the seventh version of the franchise with the big stars. But all of the new entrants and all of the passion and all the creativity and innovation is coming in from the bottom in film. And I think there will be a different kind of film business a few years from now that enables that kind of creative art to really thrive, not just as a creative work, but actually thrive as a profession, as a career, as a business. So that's what I'm doing now. So this was the start of a journey that's now, I guess I really am in the film business. I'm a filmmaker. It wasn't true before. This is the very first one. You're going to see a lot more from our film company.
And amazingly, two of the soundtrack, it's an amazing soundtrack which fits the time of day or night, were nominated for an Oscar.
They weren't nominated. They qualified and they made the short list. But for a documentary, actually, there weren't any documentaries that were nominated. But it's very unusual for a documentary period to go that far, because we're up against the big $100 million, $200 million, $300 million Hollywood films. But we do have two original songs from amazing artists that weren't slapped in there at the end on the end credits, but they were they were written specifically for critical turning points of the film. And they were, when you get into the music side, you deal with a lot of lawyers and agents and managers and publishers, and it's like you spend more money on them than the artists. I mean, but the greatest music in the film was totally passion-driven, inspired by Burning Man from really talented artists who were also inspired by Burning Man. It really resonated with the story.
Okay, I have a last question, and that is which is the scene we should look for, which you are, let's say, maybe the most proud of? And it's obviously your baby. You have every scene is amazing, but what is one which is particular? What is something which is in the movie was wow, was difficult, that was amazing. It's
So we spent a whole year following lots and lots of stories. A lot of movies are like on one person, the life of this one person. You can't really do that with Burning Man because it's, I mean, you call it a Burning Man story. Even though we have lots of stories in there, it's like there's thousands and thousands of stories that are kind of like this. So we followed a lot of stories throughout a whole year through kind of a similar kind of progression from a dream to the challenges of trying to make it real to getting to the other side. And we had to find everybody at the end. We had to bring it all together. So the one person that we couldn't find at the end was Larry Harvey, the founder of Burning Man. And I wasn't one of the cinematographers. We had I think we had like 15 people out there with cameras shooting for us by the end, because it was a big project and all these stories were happening in parallel at the same time. But I had not my really fancy camera. I had my more, kind of regular camera. But I found Larry Harvey at the burn. Yeah. And so my whole burn was lying on the dust with my camera looking back at Larry Harvey, and that's sort of that moment where he's looking at the burn. But the reason why it was a really special moment is when I first went to Burning Man, I thought, what is this place? Who did this? I have to get to know the people who made this thing possible. And so I had that in my mind. It was my very first thought when I went to Burning Man. And then one of the things that people talk about at Burning Man, and one of the principles is immediacy, really being there in the moment. And when you're behind a camera, often it's like you're not in the moment. You're like, I'm thinking about the future because someone needs to go edit this, we're making a film, or it's like record it for for posterity, but it's not in the moment experience. And so I was sitting there behind the camera, filming Larry Harvey, and I thought, no, not this moment. I'm totally in the moment on this. I forget about the burn behind me, the big event. This is the moment that I had in my mind 8 years ago or 7 years ago at that time when I first went to Burning Man. This is what that was what I said I wanted to do. I wanted to meet these people and get to know these people that created this community on this totally different set of values. And I learned a lot from this whole experience, and a lot from Larry. I was in a world where, kind of trapped in that hierarchical values of the world, and full of passionate people who want to change the world, but needing to raise money and needing to do all of these things. You're sort of worshiping the idols of tech who made it big, and you're sort of in this trying to prove yourself all the time. Larry kind of just turned all that on its head for me. It's like he said, it's like doing that is never going to. That's not the key. That's not going to give you permission to do what you want to do. You just need to do it. You need to claim it, and find the people that are going to join you on that. And so I got to know Larry, and Burning Man has 10 principles that I'll go like briefly through, and you won't even be able to really read them. But for me, when I'm coming up with the principles of my new media company, which is all about helping tell the stories of people who are trying to change the world in creative ways. But I boiled it down to the values of learning, creating, and collaborating. And learning, because learning is not just fueled by passion and curiosity, but when you say learning is a core value, it means the humility to say, I'm probably wrong, because there's definitely going to be a better way to do this, but the courage to go do it anyways, which is how we move forward. And creativity, when you say creativity is creating is a core value, the inspiration for the best creative work is always being right in the middle of problems and challenges. That's what inspires creative people. It's not backing away and being afraid of them. It's diving into the biggest challenges. But to do anything big, you have to collaborate with other people. And collaboration, as we saw in the drum circle, is not always an easy thing, but it really is about bringing together people with talent and passion in all kinds of different disciplines to do, and appreciating all of the talent to make it possible, to make an event like this possible, or your company possible, or anything you're doing. It's not just that rock star, that the world says, sort of responsible for everything. It's a collaborative effort of all kinds of people, and making a movie is exactly that kind of collaboration, which is why I like that field so much. And you'll see a long list of credits at the end, and I like to let it roll out to the very, very end, because some of the magic is at the very end. So
Okay, I think without further ado, let's see the film. Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Right,
thank you.
you.